He's finally asleep after the rocking and the feeding and the walking and the shushing. After everything you tried, he's completely, deeply, peacefully asleep on your chest. You can feel the weight of him, the specific way he settled in, head tucked, body heavy, breathing slow, and even in a way it almost never is anywhere else. And for a moment, everything is still. Then comes the calculation every mother knows. How long has it been? Is he deep enough? If I stand up slowly, move carefully, lower him down without changing the angle too fast, maybe this time it works. You hold your breath. You lower him toward the mattress. You wait. And within seconds, sometimes before he's even fully touched the surface, the eyes open, the face changes, and everything you just spent 40 minutes building disappears in an instant. You pick him back up. He settles immediately, and you're left standing there in the quiet, wondering the same thing you've wondered 100 times. Why here? Why only here? What is it about this specific place, this chest, this heartbeat, this breathing, that nothing else can replicate? It turns out the answer isn't a mystery. It's biology, documented, measurable, specific biology that researchers have spent decades trying to fully understand. And your baby isn't choosing your chest because he's dependent or spoiled or undertrained. He's choosing it because his nervous system recognizes something there that no mattress, no swaddle, no perfectly engineered sleep environment has ever been able to reproduce. What that something is and what it's doing to his brain while he sleeps there is what this video is about. To understand why your chest works when nothing else does, you have to go back 9 months. For the entire duration of the pregnancy, your baby lived inside an environment that offered everything: constant warmth, total physical containment, surrounded on all sides, never unsupported. A heartbeat at roughly 70 to 90 decibels, about as loud as a vacuum cleaner, present every second of every day. The rhythmic rise and fall of breathing, felt as movement rather than sound. A specific smell that became, over months, the neurological definition of home. Then birth happens, and in a single moment, every single one of those inputs disappears simultaneously. The containment is gone. The constant warmth is gone. The heartbeat, the breathing movement, the smell, all gone, replaced by open air, flat surfaces, and an environment that offers none of the sensory information the nervous system spent 9 months learning to depend on. Zoologist Adolph Portman calculated in 1944 that for a human baby to be born at the same neurological maturity as a newborn chimpanzee, the human pregnancy would need to last approximately 21 months. We are born by primate standards almost a year too early. Not because something went wrong, because the human brain grows so large, so fast, that there is a hard biological deadline. The baby's head simply cannot fit through the birth canal any later than it does. Harvey Karp called this the 4th trimester. The first 3 months of life are, in biological terms, still a gestation, just external. And during that external gestation, the baby needs an environment that replicates what the womb provided. Your chest replicates almost all of it. The heartbeat, now external but identical in rhythm and proximity to what the baby heard for 9 months. The breathing, felt as movement, the chest rising and falling beneath them, exactly as it did from the inside. The warmth, stable, responsive, adjusting to the baby's temperature in real time, in a way no blanket or sleep sack can match. The containment, arms creating boundaries on all sides, the specific pressure of being held that signals to the nervous system that it is enclosed and safe. The smell, recognized since the first hours of life, filed under safe before the baby had any concept of what safe meant. The crib offers none of these things. It is flat, still, temperature neutral, odorless, and silent. It asks the baby's nervous system to do something it was not designed to do at this stage, to feel safe in the complete absence of every input it was calibrated to expect. This is not a habit your baby developed. This is not a preference you created by responding to their needs. This is a nervous system doing exactly what 200,000 years of human biology designed it to do, finding the environment it was built for. and staying there. But here's what most parents never hear, because what your chest is doing to your baby's body while they sleep on it goes far beyond replicating the womb. It's doing something that took scientists decades to measure, and the findings changed how neonatal medicine thinks about newborn care entirely. Your baby cannot regulate their own body temperature efficiently, cannot stabilize their own heart rate, cannot manage their own cortisol levels, cannot maintain consistent breathing patterns without external reference, cannot self-soothe in any neurologically meaningful way. These aren't developmental failures, they're specifications. The human newborn arrives in the world with systems that are functional enough to survive, but not mature enough to operate independently. The missing piece, the component that makes everything run correctly, is external. It's you. When your baby lies on your chest, something begins happening that looks like sleep, but is actually something more precise than that. Your heartbeat is steady, rhythmic, predictable, becomes the template their heart rate organizes around. Research published by Wainforth in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health documented that the movement of a mother's breathing directly influences the respiratory regulation of her baby during sleep. Your chest rising and falling functions as a biological metronome. The baby's breathing finds the rhythm and follows it. Your body temperature does something that no incubator, no matter how sophisticated, has been able to fully replicate. It's bidirectional. When the baby is cold, your chest warms them. When the baby is too warm, your body adjusts. Research demonstrating that skin-to-skin contact stabilizes temperature more effectively than incubators in premature infants wasn't a minor finding. It was significant enough to change standard practice in neonatal units around the world. Your presence keeps cortisol low. Studies measuring stress hormone levels in infants found that separation from the caregiver's body produces measurable cortisol elevation. Contact with your chest keeps the stress system deactivated, not suppressed, not masked, genuinely quiet, in a way that a safe, warm, empty crib does not. And then there's the finding that changed how researchers think about what contact actually does to a developing brain. In 2026, a team of researchers published results from a study using simultaneous EEG recordings in mothers and their babies, measuring the electrical activity of both brains at the same time during skin-to-skin contact. What they found was synchronization. Across every measured frequency range, the brain waves of mother and baby aligned during chest contact, not approximately, significantly. And the strength of that synchronization correlated directly with the internal neural organization of the baby's brain. Two nervous systems tuning to each other, the baby's brain using the mother's brain as an external reference, a signal to organize around, to synchronize with, to build from. Stanford researchers published findings in 2024 showing that just 20 additional minutes per day of skin-to-skin contact produced a 10-point increase on standardized cognitive development scales at 12 months. Not from curriculum, not from stimulation, from contact. Will Cornell and Stanford published brain imaging results in 2025 showing structural changes in neural tracts responsible for socio-emotional development and stress regulation in babies who received more skin-to-skin contact. Structural changes visible on a scan. Your chest is not just replicating the womb, it is actively building the brain that is resting on it. Every hour your baby sleeps, there is an hour of neural synchronization, cortisol regulation, respiratory patterning, and temperature calibration that a mattress, however good, simply cannot provide. But if your chest is doing all of this, if it is so precisely what your baby's nervous system needs, why does the transfer to the crib always end the same way? The answer involves a reflex most parents have never heard of. And once you understand it, the transfer problem stops being confusing entirely. You've done everything right. Waited long enough, moved slowly enough, kept the angle, kept the warmth, lowered them so carefully that your arms were shaking from the effort of moving that slowly. and still the eyes open. It feels like failure, like the baby knows, like there's some invisible threshold being crossed that your baby detects before you even complete the movement. There is. And it has a name, the Moro reflex. Present in every healthy newborn, the Moro is an involuntary motor response triggered by a sudden change in position or the sensation of falling. When it activates, the arms fling outward, the back arches, and the baby startles, fully, completely, instantly awake. On your chest, the Moro is suppressed. The body is supported on all sides. The surface beneath the baby is soft, warm, and moving gently with your breathing. There is no sensation of falling, no positional change, no sudden shift in temperature or support. The nervous system reads the environment as stable and the reflex stays quiet. Then the transfer begins. The angle changes. The temperature drops from the warmth of your chest to the relative coolness of a mattress surface. The heartbeat disappears. The breathing movement stops. The containment of your arms releases. And for a nervous system that is evolutionarily calibrated to treat sudden environmental change during sleep as a potential threat, every one of those changes arrives simultaneously. The Moro fires, the arms go out, the baby wakes, not because they were sleeping lightly, not because you moved too fast, because the transition from chest to crib triggers the exact set of sensory changes that the reflex was designed to respond to. And here's the detail that explains something most parents notice but never connect. Around 4 months, many babies begin accepting transfers more readily. They go down more easily. They stay down longer. Parents assume the baby has finally learned to sleep in the crib, that the training worked, or the habit broke, or the baby simply matured past the preference. That's not what happened. The Moro reflex disappears at approximately 16 weeks. The baby isn't tolerating the crib better because they've accepted it. They're tolerating it because the reflex that was waking them on contact with the mattress is no longer active. The crib didn't become safer. The alarm system turned off, which means every failed transfer before 4 months wasn't a behavioral problem. It was a reflex doing its job, protecting a vulnerable nervous system from an environment that, by every evolutionary metric available, registered as less safe than the one it just left. You weren't failing at the transfer. The reflex was succeeding at its purpose. And now, after everything we've covered, there's one last thing about those hours on your chest that most mothers never get to hear. Something that happens below the level of behavior, below the level of anything visible. Something that will still be there when your baby is grown. Every time your baby fell asleep on your chest, something was happening that you couldn't see. Not just the regulation, not just the cortisol staying low and the breathing finding its rhythm. Something deeper, something that won't be visible for years, but that researchers have now found a way to measure. In 2023, scientists at NYU identified the exact neural circuit that activates when a mother responds to her baby. A specific pathway connecting the baby's cry directly to oxytocin neurons in the hypothalamus. When that circuit fires, oxytocin releases in the mother's brain and in the baby's simultaneously. Oxytocin isn't just a bonding hormone in a vague sense. It is the neurochemical that governs the capacity to form safe relationships, the ability to trust, the felt sense that another person's presence means safety. It is the biological foundation of every meaningful human connection your baby will ever have. And chest contact is one of the most direct triggers that system has. But the finding that should stop every mother who has ever felt guilty about those hours, the one that changes what those moments actually mean, comes from research on epigenetics. Researchers found that babies who received more physical contact maintained higher activity in their oxytocin receptor genes throughout their lives. The contact didn't just feel good in the moment, it kept the genetic switches that control the capacity for bonding switched on. Babies who received less contact showed increased methylation of those same genes, a process that effectively silences them, a quieter oxytocin system, a system less capable across a lifetime of forming the kind of bonds that make a life feel meaningful. Every hour your baby slept on your chest was an hour of oxytocin, an hour of gene expression, an hour of epigenetic programming that will still be influencing how your child forms relationships when they are 30 years old. You weren't creating a sleep problem, you were building a system. One last thing worth saying clearly: chest sleep is the biological norm for the first 3 to 4 months. Most babies begin accepting transitions between 3 and 6 months as the Moro reflex disappears and the circadian system matures. If your baby is past 6 months and still refuses any surface with increasing intensity, or if chest sleep comes with breathing difficulty or signs of reflux, that's worth a conversation with your pediatrician. But for the vast majority of babies in those first months, the ones who settle instantly on your chest and wake the moment they leave it, there is nothing to fix. The baby on your chest right now is not dependent, is not undertrained. They are a human nervous system in its most vulnerable period doing the most precise thing it knows how to do, finding the environment it was built for. And what you gave them every time you let them stay there was exactly what the biology was asking for. Tell me in the comments, how old was your baby when they finally started accepting the crib? Because I have a feeling the answers are going to cluster right around the same age. And if this changed how you see those hours on the couch, subscribe. Every week we go deeper into what your baby is actually doing and why. The science exists, most parents just never get to hear it.